everyone. Thank you for being here today, as Christy said, and all of your craziness we know you have going on. We are here to talk about elementary future readiness. And yes, we will be sending out a recording. So if at any point you need to leave, please feel free to. Anybody that had registered for the Zoom will be getting the recording once Erin makes it all nice and beautiful. So again, thank you for being here. So our team here today, for those of you who do not know who we are all program directors from the Consortium for Public Education. We work on a variety of different programs and initiatives, and we are really here to really talk today about like career readiness, which is really what the focus of the consortium is. Our organization has been around for 36 years, I believe, at this point. So we are a local nonprofit based out of McKeesport, and we are focused on engagement and equity and education. And what does career readiness sort of look like within that space? Our focus for the last 5 years or so has really been taking this idea of career readiness, future readiness, and really helping to prepare students for life after high school and whatever path they may take. So the goal is asking our students to be able to answer 3 big questions. Who am I? Who do I want to be? And how do I get there? Currently, we work with over 53 school districts across 9 counties in southwestern Pennsylvania, and we have almost 80 community partners. Our work includes programs that work directly with students, programs that work with educators, meaning our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, and as well as we have programs that engage partners outside of education in the business world and the community, and really just trying to create a more vibrant future for our kids. So we do that in a whole lot of different ways, as I said. The things that we are going to be talking about specifically today, centering around elementary future readiness, is really having a better understanding of why it is so important, because we recognize it is very difficult. Typically, these types of conversations start being had in a more meaningful way when we are getting into middle and high school. But what research has actually shown is that elementary school conversations are especially important. So we have some strategies for how you can provide K-5 career exploration. And then we also have some resources too, which might kind of help get the wheels turning about what this might look like in your district. So really, we've sort of modified what our model is for future readiness and the certain phases of it. Self-exploration should be happening K-12. Who am I, right? We're trying to answer that question with our students because that looks different, right? What a kindergartner is and how they identify is going to be totally different than when that kindergartner becomes a senior. Career exposure, which is really kind of where we're setting most of ourselves today, is really in terms of K-5 and, answering the question of who do I want to be, right? So our students need to be exposed to different types of careers. And the exploration part then moves to really about your 7th to 12th grade in also answering who I want to be. And then really talking about like our planning skills when we're in high school. So how are you going to get there, right? But as we've said, right, this is not exact, and all of these conversations all need to be happening throughout the K-12 student experience. So I am going to hand this over to Christy, who is going to talk about where our students are in their development and how that applies to future readiness.
Sarah? Okay, so as Sarah said, we're really focusing a lot on this career exposure. We want our students in elementary to have exposure to as many options and ideas as possible. And we don't want them to be making decisions yet about what they want to be when they grow up. We want them to be exploring who they are and what the sort of world of work can be for them. So why elementary students? So childhood is this, as we know, a foundational period for who we become as adults. And when we are in those elementary ages, our brains have high neuroplasticity. So they're ready to take on new information and take in new experiences. And none of that is sort of bogged down by past experiences or biases that we have about what I'm good at or what's interesting to me. It's all new and exciting. And when we are looking at our elementary students during this time period, the experiences that we give them sort of set the stage for whether they are going to bloom or wither as adults. And that sounds serious, and it kind of is, but so all of you as elementary educators, not only are you setting the stage for helping them to learn and read and understand math and science, you're also setting the stage for what their world can look like as adults. And so it is important that we are really thinking about how career exploration can happen at this time period. And research has found that the impact on our students is stronger in elementary school than in middle and high school. So the experiences and the conversations that we're having with our students about their futures, there's a greater impact on those K-5 years than when we start doing that in in middle and high school. So the elementary years are perfect for career exploration. They're ready to explore. Their brains are ready to take in information. It's a foundational time for who they're going to become as adults. And their idea of who they'll be as adults is sort of, or either opening doors or closing doors. And their autonomy, their curiosity, their self-exploration, these are the parts of them that are really growing and expanding at this time period. And research has shown that doing career exploration during elementary years also increases attendance rates and how satisfied students are with school. And it increases their understanding of who they are and who they want to be. And it also just helps them to better understand the world of occupations and gets them excited about the future. So obviously, we want all of these things for our elementary students. So we're going to talk a little bit about the specific areas of development that our students are going through at different grade bands so that we have a better understanding of where they are and what we can be providing for them. So in pre-K and kindergarten, this is when students are beginning to understand what it means to be an adult. They are starting to connect activities with jobs. So going to an office, going to, getting in my work truck, getting on my computer. These are activities that adults do that they start to connect with, different jobs do those things. They're also starting to think about gender differences and they're starting to understand them. So as we are, providing support and exploration for our students, we want to give them time to role play different adult activities, not just necessarily the things that they're already seeing at home and at school, but expanding that to what are some other activities that different adults do in their lives. And let's include them in our play. And we want to give them just different models of what adults are doing and what different job activities are. And we really, because we know they're thinking about gender, we first of all don't want them to be boxed into a gender binary, but we also want them to understand that just because they have maybe seen more men doing construction jobs, that doesn't mean that women can't do that, right? And so we want to be mindful of how we're showing representation in different careers. When we get into 1st through 3rd grade, this is where our students are thinking even more about gender norms. So we have to really be mindful of that. And they're starting to understand different aspects of a career. So what does it mean to, go to this type of schooling and do this job, or versus, going to a CTE? They're starting to understand different elements of careers. And they begin identifying fantasy jobs more than realistic jobs. So it's at this age that our students are saying things like, I want to be a movie star, I want to be a dancer, I want to be a football player. And so we qualify those as fantasy jobs. What's interesting is that the boys in this age group identify more fantasy jobs than the girls do. And so I think that's really important to think about. Is it because we are encouraging our boys more so that they can do anything? Is it that our girls don't see enough of those fantasy jobs? And not that we necessarily want to be, encouraging our students to have these broad fantasies that they can't achieve, But the research shows that when a student has a fantasy job idea as a youngster, that generally connects with what they end up doing as an adult. So maybe I want to be a ballerina when I'm a kiddo, and maybe I end up being someone who runs a dance studio, right? Like there is a connection. And so we want to just always be pushing that exploration of you can be anything. And then when we think about what they need, we want to help them identify realistic jobs that match the fantasy jobs, right? So I want to be a football player. That's great. What else? And could you be someone who works in sports management, right? So helping our students to understand that there are realistic jobs that connect with these. And that's why we want them to be familiar with all of the options that are available to them, not just the ones we see on TV or the things that our parents do. When we get into 4th through 8th grade, this is when our students start thinking about prestige. So we know 4th and 8th graders, this is where they start thinking about, or 4th through 8th graders, they're thinking about what it means to be cool and what it means to be famous and what it means to, be upper class versus lower class. These are things they start thinking about. They also start thinking about specific career requirements. So do I need to, they're sort of starting to think about pathways. And so it's important for us to be mindful of that. They also start identifying obstacles that they perceive as obstacles. So they're making these decisions of, I'm not good at math, so I can't become a doctor. And that's where we have to say, you can be good at math. Maybe right now you're not great at it, but also you're really good at this and this and this. And so we need to help them explore the variety of career options. We want them to see that diverse representation. It's important for them to understand the diversity of our world. And so showing that to them in these grades is important, and helping them at this point to really start exploring their strengths and values. So what am I good at? What can I get better at? What are the things that I'm really interested in and that I care about? So when we allow our students to play and observe and ask questions and learn about things, they begin to imagine themselves in the future. And so that's what we're doing in this space with K through 5 especially, is we're helping our students to imagine what their lives can look like and starting to construct these stories of what my life can be. And so again, there's so much power in being an elementary educator. You are, helping your students really see all of what the world can offer them. So we need to expand our definition of academic success, because we want our students to see this broad, beautiful world that they can be a part of. We don't want them to then compartmentalize, well, this is academic life and this is everything else. So a lot of students don't understand the link between what we're doing in school and what we do after school when we're adults and we have careers. And so there's this sort of basic misunderstanding of viewing school and careers as separate dimensions of life. And we need to help them to see that your life is a continuum. We don't have, one door closes, we go to the next. It continues on. And what we're doing now builds to help us be prepared for our future. So a lot of this narrow definition of academic success really comes down to this testing culture that we know is a big part of our educational system. And we know we are trying to push against that and to break that as the norm of what's happening in our schools. And so because of this, high stakes testing culture that so many of our students are a part of, as we are in testing period right now, our students are learning that they're learning in these competitive environments, and they're feeling that pressure to attain academic achievement, succeed on these standardized tests. But what they really need is a growth mindset, right? They need to understand that I learned something now, I build on that as I become an adult. They need experiential learning where they're out of the classroom and they're exploring the world, or they're doing hands-on things. And they need to see that there's a link between what I'm learning in 2nd grade and what I become when I'm 25. Another really important aspect of career exploration is including SEL content. So we know that emotions are part of our everyday lives. There is not a day goes by that I don't experience an emotion. And so our students obviously are everything, emotions are involved. And especially with our K-5, they're just learning what these emotions are. They're starting to understand emotional self-regulation. They're starting to understand self-exploration. And so when we are engaging with their academic content and their career exposure, we also need to be mindful of SEL understanding. So if we can utilize our social emotional competencies, it's important because we have our students simultaneously learning about emotional self-regulation, identifying their emotions and feelings. We have them, understanding what numbers and letters and space and time mean. And then we also are helping them to explore the world of work. Well, we need to really help them see the connections between all of those dimensions and understand that emotions are a part of our whole selves. It's not a thing that we set aside so that we can do math. No, our emotions are a part of this. We don't set aside our emotions when we're learning about careers, because what do you care about? What are you interested in? What makes you happy? That's part of, that's why SEL matters. We have to help them understand the different emotions they feel, and also the emotions that they will feel as adults when they are in a workplace, and how to best manage them so that they are not running around yelling at people. So we're setting them up for those skills now. We have some strategies listed here. We'll go over more strategies later, but just want as a reminder that, when we're using SEL lessons, embedding them in our content, PA Career Ready has a lot of strategies that we'll touch on. And we just want to be talking about emotional wellness and what are our strengths and values with our kiddos. So, like I said earlier, we want our students to be exploring, not necessarily making decisions, right? When we ask a kindergartner, what do you want to be when you grow up? We're asking them to make a decision and eliminate options. But what we want is to help our students explore. We want to help them say, well, I know that I'm creative and I like to work with my hands. Fantastic. Awesome. So go ahead to the next slide, Sarah. One of the ways that we can ensure that our students are exploring and not eliminating is by using the 16 career clusters as sort of a base for how we are organizing our career exploration in our classrooms. So if you're not familiar with the 16 career clusters, it's a federal organization of jobs. And so it's supposed to be a way to organize, every job that exists into a different career cluster. A lot of our jobs cover more than one cluster. Some jobs aren't actually listed yet on there appropriately because there are new jobs beginning every day. So, but this is just a great way to just sort of anchor our career exploration. Am I giving my students exposure to all of these different career clusters, not just education and training, which is where I am as an educator, not just health sciences, which is where a lot of our family members work in the Pittsburgh area, but am I also looking at human services, information technology, government and public administration, and how am I bringing people into my classroom, getting my students out to those places to explore all of these clusters. So the goal of career development in our elementary age children is to help them broaden their knowledge and help them to understand that there are a variety of career choices available to them. What we don't want them to do is prematurely eliminate careers because they think they're not smart enough, or they don't see anybody who looks like them doing that, or they just don't know how to get there. So we really want to be helping them to identify all of the options that are available to them. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it back to Sarah to talk a little bit about some specific career exploration strategies for those grade bands.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, so a few strategies to kind of help you start thinking. Currently, we still lack the curriculum and models in this area of elementary career development, right? So anything that you're going to be doing will more than likely not already have been done. But we do have strategies that could help kind of get that process started so that whatever those ideas are will help work in your systems. And really, it's imperative that we don't wait for something to just magically appear, but that we are creating things that are authentic and creative and engaging for our students. So some strategies for pre-K and kindergarten. Students show and tell to share about hobbies and skills that they're excited about. Family and community member visits to talk about jobs, right? Who is somebody that they love? They love when family members come into the classroom and to do things and to talk about the jobs that they have. Different site visits showing a variety of adults and activities in different types of jobs, right? So even those types of visits are really important, even for our younger kids, right? Which I think is something that's missed a lot. Typically, we talk about field trips as being kind of like an older kid thing to do. But like for pre-K and kindergarten, this is extremely important. And it is also really important that they have structured as well as unstructured play that help focus on adult activities. There's a reason why the kitchen sets and, the doctor's play toys are important for our students to have. So having a variety of those things, right? Not our typical, but maybe some different types of ways that students can engage in playing and acting like adults is an important thing. Because ultimately our kids are thinking about, what does it mean to be an adult? What do adults do at their jobs? And what jobs do adults who look like me have, right? So that's important that we're also keeping those types of jobs very diverse so that all of our kids can engage and see someone that looks like them. In 1st through 3rd grade, being able to meet a variety of adults and visit a variety of different job sites, again, kind of continuing on what we should really be doing with our pre-K and kindergarten. Having activities that explore the 16 different career clusters, what are examples within those career clusters that our students can engage with? And specifically linking curriculum to specific jobs, right? It is important to answer that question of, when am I ever going to use this? Well, this particular type of content is going to be really important if you were in this type of a job, right? Which I think is a conversation I know that when I was teaching, I definitely missed, right? Why is it important to learn these bits of science? Because kids are thinking that, as Christy said, it's their fantasy, right? Like they want to be a movie star or a football player. And they're also wondering like, well, what else could they do? And then how would they do that? So by the time students are in 4th through 8th grade, it is important to continually further link the curriculum to specific careers, to have activities for students that can identify their strengths and their values, begin mapping multiple post-secondary pathway options, right? They should know what comes after high school and all the variety of options that are out there. And just continue on to have site visits, but instead of going just to job sites, taking them to post-secondary career and educational facilities, and having more conversations with adults that are in careers that are interesting to them, right? To learn about what it is like on a day-to-day basis to be an author. Because kids are still in this sort of fantasy place. They want to be famous. And they're already starting to say, I can't do that job because I'm not really great at that particular skill. And also the conversation around college is also, something that is still following us, right? So do they have to go to college to have that job, right? So these are all types of questions that students are thinking about. It is also important that, as Christy had mentioned, this idea of, disrupting our testing culture, because we can do that in a variety of ways, right? So that our kids don't have this singular focus on academics and then like my career. Having real world experiences in the classroom are important. And that can be done through a variety of ways. Project-based learning is one of our most favorites. Because it really brings in the outside into the classroom, brings in experts into the classroom, people that can talk about these jobs. And it allows students also a little more voice and choice in how they engage in their content. it's important to have interactions with a lot of other adults, that we are learning outside of the classroom, and to have a lot of opportunities to be creative and imaginative. Because right now with the testing culture, we have kids thinking that they have to be perfect. There's either a right or a wrong answer, which, as we know, so much in life is not like that. And then also the focus on, well, what is the answer? Just tell me what the answer is, right? And that there's the disconnect between what they are learning in school is not really applicable in their minds to what's going on in the real world. So I'm going to hand it over to Debbie, who's going to talk about particular SEL strategies.
Thanks, Sarah. Excuse me. So before we get started on the SEL strategies, I just want to acknowledge that we are going to use different grade level bands for these SEL strategies than we used for the ones that Sarah just talked about. And the reason we're doing that is because Pennsylvania has their Career Ready Skills Continuum, and I'll drop the link in the chat after I'm done, but they use these particular grade level bands to identify at which part of these developmental stages students can be building on different parts of their social emotional learnings. So when we're talking about those preschool and kindergarten kids, just talking to them about those friendship skills, right? That builds on their social awareness, that builds on their ability to build relationships, which, you know, those are skills that we're still working on as adults, right? So if we start those conversations early about, what do I do when Susie doesn't want to play with me? And what do I do if this boy pushes me? And, you know, how to manage that and how to process that for myself begins at these early ages. Just helping students talk and name their feelings when we're reading books or when we're watching movies, any kind of media that we're talking about, is a great way to help them build those self-management skills and those self-awareness skills. And that leads into talking about how it feels to be left out, and their ability to give and receive feedback even starts in these early skills. One other strategy you can use is create a check-in board where students place their name or photo next to a feeling picture, which can be really valuable to you. I will say that sometimes we've seen it done in a way that is more overt, or for that other kids can see what one kid has shown. And so it's important to try and give as much privacy to kids as possible. Already at these early ages, you're going to have kids that are going to only give an answer that other kids have given, or they're going to feel ashamed that they feel a certain way. So you want to start that giving them space to be honest and authentic about what they're going through so that you can best help them learn and have a great day. Once you get into 1st through 5th grade, that's where you can have students start writing and using personal reflection journals. A lot of times teachers will use, you know, like a morning journal that they'll write just like what happened over the weekend or the day or how I'm feeling this morning. Again, that gives them time to reflect on how am I actually feeling and how does that impact how I'm going to approach the day. When you're doing reading as a group or individually, you can have students name the emotions that are experienced by a character. You know, in 2nd grade, I've seen teachers send home like their book reports, which it's a 2nd grade book report, not like a novel, but it is, you know, what was your favorite character and what did you like about them? And what was hard? What was a challenge for that person? So just again, building on that ability to name emotions, both that they feel and that others are feeling, builds that ability to both self-manage and then build relationships. Anytime you're doing anything collaboratively is an opportunity to build relationship skills, help them make responsible decisions. And using norms and protocols can really give students structure in order to be able to do that effectively. Sometimes it's easy to just let things flow, and certainly there is a time and a place for that. But sometimes if we can give norms or a place to start, things that we know we want to aim for, that can help kids have kind of a script or a way to default into healthy behavior that they can build upon and grow as they age. Just one more thing, role playing can also be huge at nearly every age. One, because then you can practice what healthy responses are and hopefully build those as they grow. But also, like, what do I do, right? If a child comes back to me, or if my child comes home and says, Mommy, I didn't know what to do. Well, that's a place, well, let's talk about it. And then let's role play and talk about how you could do it differently next time, because there's always a next time. In 6th through 8th grade, then we're still really role playing, but this is where you build on that to those conflict resolution skills, something many adults I know could still work on now, including myself. But giving students practice, right? Sometimes those things are hard because we don't practice them. We just get to a situation where it's hard and the stakes feel high and you're like, I don't know, and I'm not happy and I don't know how to express myself. So as much as we can give students opportunity to practice, including in career situations, right? We don't need to do this siloed separate from other things. We want to do it when they're already doing a group project, when they're already doing other career exploration. Let's practice. Okay, what are you going to do when you meet this grown-up at the job site? How are you going to talk to them? What questions do you have? Let's practice. This goes very well along with how to discuss strategies that other characters are using to handle stressors. You can talk about how the kid in that book handled that terribly, because look at all those ramifications of that comment. What would have been a better way to handle that? How would you handle that if you were in that situation? Similar with historical figures, anytime you're looking at people in different contexts, there can be graphic organizers that show various ways to express feelings, also to identify feelings. I've seen a great pinwheel of emotions that can be great to help students get new language, broader language, right? We don't want to only have 5 words to describe how we feel. There are hundreds of words we can use to describe how we feel, and they have some nuance, and they can help you know that you're not pigeonholed in this. You're not stuck. You're moving. It's different this time. How is it different? Again, just more role playing and giving students the opportunity to play different roles in that role playing can be really key, because we all default to the thing that feels most comfortable for us, but that's not how life does not decide to just give us the most like, oh, Debbie, this is the thing that you do best. So all your situations will only be in that vein. No, this time you're going to do this role, and you need to practice in that space as well. I know we talked about I mentioned the career ready skills continuum, but that continuum is really built on these career ready skills on the left. And if you're familiar with the Castle social emotional pillars, you can see that self-awareness and self-management aligns exactly to that. Establishing and maintaining relationships, that's about your social awareness and building relationships. And then those social responsible problem-solving skills. So they align perfectly with, we know that kids need these things to be successful in the workplace, to get and keep a job, to be happy in a job. And you can see that they break it down by specific employability skills there on the right. So if you're looking for a direct line or something that overtly connects social emotional learning with future readiness and career readiness, this is a great place to start, especially if you have folks who are poo-pooing your social emotional learning efforts. Like, no, look, like these are the skills we're teaching and we're identifying and we're helping students grow so that they can get and keep a job, because most people in your community do hope that students graduate and go on to get and keep a job. And also in that toolkit, there are a couple of infographics. This one is they're educating for employability. They have another one that's the anatomy of an employee or something, but they're essentially the same, and they're a different packaging that's more aesthetically engaging of that information on the previous slide. So often when we talk about career exploration considerations, we think about inventories, site visits, and expert guides. And Sarah mentioned this, you heard it in the research that Christy shared, but there are just a couple of considerations for each of those that can really help or hinder your work in this space. So if you're going to do a career or an interest inventory, if you're using a tool like RISEC, you want to emphasize that these are not permanent results, and sometimes they aren't accurate. We talked to a teacher the other day who was sharing, I've taken this test dozens of times, I get a different answer every time, and it has never told me I will be a teacher. So just helping students know, right, especially in those early years where everything is very literal and like, well, it told me I have to do this, so that's what I have to do, and I don't have any options, and I don't know why they're making me explore anymore. No, this is just a place to start your exploration. This is just to give you some insights about some things you like or don't like. Not that we're not going to look at other things, not like you won't change, right? You're not the same person as a senior in high school as you are in kindergarten, thank goodness. And so don't feel pigeonholed into the results of one test that may or may not really lend itself to you. In terms of your site visits, Christy mentioned, Sarah mentioned, utilize those 16 career clusters to optimize your career exposure. Again, it's just a way to help make sure that you're not only providing healthcare options or only providing business and administration type careers, right? There are a whole bunch of them. And we've had local research that says that kids only know about the jobs their parents have, one or two other people, and the jobs that they see all the time, right? Doctor, nurse, bus driver, teacher. So as much as we can give them a broader experience, a broader understanding of the options available to them, and organize your site visits accordingly. It's also really valuable both for the people who are hosting your site visit and for your students to do some pre and post visit learning activities to increase their engagement, and also for your employer folks to design an experience that is useful to your students. And then if you're having expert guests, we've said this a few times already, consider your age, racial, and gender representation, right? We want all students to see that a whole variety of careers are open to them. And you'll want to prepare the guest and the students for the visit. Your topic, your expectations, different ways to talk to students, right? You don't want to talk down to them, but also don't use a lot of jargon. We've had some experience in that space, so feel free to reach out to us if you have specific questions. We'd be happy to help you with a protocol or some, I don't want to say best practices, but some tips from experience, we'll say, that can increase the value of those conversations. And now I'm going to pass it back to Christy to talk about some examples for career exploration.
Thank you. All right, so we want to just give you a few examples of what is happening really in some other states around career exploration and future readiness in that elementary level. So Arizona has a resource called My Road Trip to College, Careers, and Life. And it has, if you can go to the next slide, Sarah, it has basically a visual for each grade. And so at the end, by the end of kindergarten, they want the student to have been able to do all of these things. And so we have the academic content and behavior, post-secondary and career awareness, self-management and life skills, financial and civic literacy. So it has all four of these sort of quadrants of ensuring that our students are prepared for their future after high school. And they're really scaffolded very well. Now, granted, this is, from Arizona, but this is something that you could look at and you could utilize for your own school, for your students. They are all grade appropriate and age appropriate. And they really, build on one another. So and that was our kindergarten. Here's our second grade one. There's slightly different things that we want our students to be looking at. So in the kindergarten one, it said visit a college. In the second grade one, it's talk to an adult about colleges they like and why. Locate these colleges on a map. Now this is, I would say, more focused on college preparedness than pathways that don't involve college. So that would be something to keep in mind if you're utilizing this resource. Okay, so Kentucky has done a lot also with elementary planning. And so they have this toolkit, elementary planning and implementation, and it walks you through not only let's say you want to sort of like utilize this entire model in your school, it would walk you through the different stages of implementation. But our focus right here is it gives this continuum for career exploration from K through 5. So in kindergarten and first, students are introduced to the reasons why people work and what people in their local community are doing. But by 4th and 5th, they have opportunities in the world of work outside of the classroom using the 16 career cluster framework. They're thinking about how personal skills, interests, and abilities impact making decisions about our careers. So it aligns very well with everything that we've talked about today. Delaware doesn't necessarily have a whole toolkit, but they have this pretty good career cluster activity from their Department of Labor, because that's where our career clusters come from. They come from the federal Department of Labor. And so this is, I like this guide. The students just go through and sort of check mark, I like these things, and then they tally. These are where my highest numbers are. My 2 favorite career clusters are, and then they do some exploration with them. And I like that it doesn't say my favorite, but my 2 favorite. We would say identify your 3. Whenever we're talking about our pathways for after post-secondary, it's really good to have 3 options available and map out 3 options so that your students never feel pigeonholed into this is the path, this is what I'm doing, but they know that they have options. They are prepared to pivot from one to the next when life happens. There are also 2 examples of career cluster coloring books, which we enjoyed finding. So Virginia has one, and the next one is Texas. What's interesting about these, I mean, it's just nice they have a little bit of information about the careers, but the students are using this just to color. Now, I will say that the representation in terms of gender is good, but in terms of racial representation is not great. So you might want to think about that if you did utilize these, so that our students don't feel like, well, these are all kids and people who look white. So we want to obviously show our students that the world is not just full of people who are white. So we want to give them opportunities. But we like the coloring book idea a lot. It's a good way to sort of get your K through 2 thinking about career clusters without having to read and write. So in summary, we need to be cultivating future readiness with our elementary school students. It is important that we start in kindergarten to think about what does my future look like, and that involves SEL, that involves career exploration, that involves a lot more than just taking and mastering a test. And we need to move away from that testing culture, which I know within our space and the educators that we work with, that is something that everyone is ready to do and wants to do. And even the state and the federal education departments, they know they've created these, science standards that they are not necessarily test-based assessments. They are pushing in that direction. And so we need to get there also, and make sure that we are using the SEL content as we are thinking about career exploration. Because if I don't have really strong social emotional understanding of myself, I might not be a successful adult. I might be able to identify a career, and I might be able to manage that pathway, but I might run into trouble with maintaining that job or moving forward in that job. So, and we've also presented you with a lot of strategies and accompanying resources to help support your instruction. And so remember, like we said, there isn't a program or a curriculum out there that's going to magically do this for you. And I would push against using those anyway. We want what we present to our students to be authentic to who we are as educators in our classrooms, and authentic to who our students are in your classrooms. It's not a one size fits all. Nothing that we are doing as educators should be a one size fits all, which is really interesting to say during PSSA testing. Also, we have some resources for you. We have the career journeys, which is actually, you know what, Debbie, do you want to talk about the career journeys and Snack and Learns? Those are really good resources for our educators to use.
Sure. So the Career Journeys video library was created, we started at the beginning of the pandemic because we knew students didn't have opportunities to go talk with folks or go be a part of different site visits. So there are informal interviews with professionals in all 16 career clusters with as much diversity in each career cluster as we could muster, but really trying to give students enough non-Googleable information about different careers that they could say, hey, I really want to learn more about this. Or, wow, the lawyer said that I'm going to have to read and write a lot, and I do not enjoy that. So even if it's prestigious, I should not go to law school, right? I should find something else to do with my time. So I love our Career Journeys videos library, not just because I spent a lot of time on it, though clearly I am biased in that regard. But I do think it provides a lot of value to students and to educators who are looking to expand the number of career clusters that they're trying to represent when they're talking with students. They were intended for middle school and high school students, but certainly students as young as 4th grade, especially if you're doing it in a group setting and having conversation that follows, can certainly engage with that content. The Snack and Learn videos are really more company-based and industry-based rather than personal career pathway-based, but they still can give some good information about particular industries. So if students are trying to just understand that better, those can also be valuable. Christy didn't ask me to talk about this, but the I Reach, I Teach videos, those are interviews with Black educators. So if you have students who are Black and they're interested in education but have hesitation or just want to hear from other people in a variety of roles within education systems, those are a huge asset. The people who are in them are fantastic. Such great advice from the people who shared in those videos. And then I'm going to pass it back to Christy to talk about the Equity and Engagement in Education blog, which is our newest resource on the website.
Thanks, Debbie. So yes, our Equity and Engagement in Education blog was launched in January, and it's been a focus of our equity team within CPE, which is Sarah and myself and Frank, who's not here today because he's doing other important things, mentoring and HBCU exposure. And our intern Delphi was a big part of the blog. And so we have, I think we have maybe 10 to 15 posts up there. I'm not really sure what the number is, but we try to post just about weekly, and it's just exploring a variety of issues around equity and engagement within education. And so that is basically Sarah and me and Delphi talking about fairly vulnerable aspects of equity, and trying to provide you as educators with tools to expand those conversations and create more inclusive environments within our schools. Sarah, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I thought you did a great job explaining
Okay,
it has been fun, and Christy is correct. It is being transparent and vulnerable in all of the education the equity realms. So it has been fun to write.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our contact information. I have to say, I'm pleased that we did this in under an hour so that you have more time in your day. Also, I don't understand how it took us less than an hour to go through all of that content. So these are the sources. Some of the pages, when you get the recording, some of the pages have the links directly on them, but these are the 5 articles that we pulled all of our information from. Some of them are as recent as 2021 in publication. So it is the most recent research on career readiness in our elementary students. If you would like to, you can take out your phone and stay connected with us now by following us at TCFPE for Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, or go to any of the resources that Erin has been putting in the chat for us. So we try to share resources with our educators as much as we can. We are former classroom educators, and we want you to come away with, every time you engage with us, something that you can use in your building tomorrow. So we hope that we have provided you with some thinking and strategies that you can use tomorrow. And that is the end of our content delivery. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or if you would like to unmute yourself, we are happy to have a further discussion with anybody. You can also, if you're, watching the video, or if you have to go, you can email us with any questions. We are more than happy to provide as much support as we can in the realm of elementary future readiness.